Hello and welcome to the Man Cave here at Wistful Vistas in San Diego, California, or the Gary Cave anyway. We're going to do a little project on the BMW S1000R, fondly referred to as the Red Baron 2014. We're going to put rear view mirror extenders on it. A lot of motorcyclists will understand when I say when you look in the rear view mirrors, you get mostly a view of the front of your shoulders as opposed to any rear view mirror or rear view activity. So SW Motech has come along with a mirror extension, and it fits into the standard connectors. They give you the small pieces to put it all together. And we're only going to need 4 items really to finish the work, besides our hands and perhaps a little bit of luck. Things go our way. 4 items are a Torx wrench set. I have a little handy key pocket arrangement here to hold them in. This happens to be a number 25 Torx. If you've got a metric bike, that's a pretty common size. So if you don't want to buy the whole set, you could just buy a number 25, although I'd recommend the whole set. They're not expensive. 17 millimeter wrench. I have a combination, but we're only going to use the open end. A number 8 metric Allen wrench, or as some of my friends used to call it, an alien wrench, number 8 Allen wrench. Again, I just bought, I went down to Home Depot some years ago and bought a set of metric Allen wrenches in US, and that keeps them very handy and organized. And we're going to use Loctite thread locker blue number 242. I like blue. I prefer the blue for small nuts and bolts because the blue matches the color of my eyes. No, that's not it. The blue actually will lock and keep things from vibrating out, but it won't set up so tight that you've got to use an inordinate amount of force to disassemble. You can disassemble it with hand tools. It takes 10 minutes to set, so you don't have a situation where you think you got to get it done right away or it'll set up on you and not thread it in. You've got 10 minutes to work with it. And also, as I say, you've got just a little bit on there and you can take it apart with hand tools. But when you can't safety wire things, it's a great way to have a little peace of mind that they're not going to vibrate loose, which is always an issue on motorcycles. Okay, having said that, let's spring into action. A few steps to get it done. Not particularly challenging. I purchased this from Revzilla, www.revzilla.com. You go onto their website and you enter your motorcycle type, year, and make, and you can find various parts that are available for your machine. I saw this and I thought, what a great idea. So Revzilla, we're going to put you to the test. With a little magic, let's get started. First task is to get rid of the protective rubber boot over the nuts that hold the original placement of the rear view mirror in place. And that's a matter of snaking it upward and over like this. Just apply a little bit of pressure and she'll move right along. If you had to, if it had been in there for a long time, you could use a little soapy water, and that'll be all the lubricant you need to move it out of the way. But this bike is relatively new as a 2014. We don't need to do that. Okay, phase 1 done. How you feeling? I'm excited. Phase 2 of our mirror extension install is to loosen the 2 bolts. This one actually holds the mirror in place. This one installs it into the mount. They're not in with a lot of force. We don't need to apply too much force there, but we'll hold on to that mirror and give it just a couple of gentle turns, and that's enough to get that started. So feeling very good here. Now you see the mirror freely turns back and forth. Next phase is to actually dismount the mirror, and that's that combination right there. So we're going to take that, going to hold on to the bars and give it a healthy tug, and there she goes. Okay, our next step in removing this is we've got to get the brake reservoir out of the way. So we're going to unscrew the back here. Going to try and keep the brake reservoir upright so that we don't lose any fluid or cause issues with that. But we're going to unthread that and move on to the next phase. Hey, it's that exciting feeling when we've gotten the disassembly done and we're starting to go in the other direction. I've got the SW Motech mirror extender now ready to put in. We've removed the mirror from the threaded location. There's 3 pieces that we put here. These are symmetrical, same from side to side. We have a spacer that lifts it up a little bit, the Allen bolt itself. So we drop that in like so. We're going to put a little thread locker right there. I hope that comes out on camera. And we're going to drop it in there and tighten her right up. Stand by. If there's any potential issue with the installation of these, it's the potential for interference with the controls underneath. That is keeping them visible, but not a particularly big deal as long as you kind of mount them. I kind of mount them with a little bit of a forward cant, if you will, little positive camber in relation to the overall handlebars. So we snug these down. There's no torque setting, and as I stated earlier, these don't have to be super duper tight, just tight enough to hold the unit in place. So we'll cinch it down here. Got a little too far there, and kind of run it into place like that. That's really enough to hold it, and with a thread locker it won't vibrate out. Okay, next step is to reinstall the brake fluid reservoir. Okay, we've replaced the brake fluid reservoir. Try to say that 3 times fast. We haven't fully tightened it down because we may want to wobble it around as we reinstall the rear view mirror into the extension, which is now on there rather nicely. So we're going to put a little thread locker on here and then spin this bad boy right into place. Getting close. I worked at Douglas Aircraft many years ago, and I can recall one of my lead persons saying, "Gary, a little thread locker can be a bad thing in the wrong hands." I always thought that was kind of funny. Okay, we've got it seated down there. Remember, we've still got the mirror loose because we haven't tightened this one up, and we're not going to do it yet. So my next step is to just tighten up that little guy right there. We'll stay live as we do this, and we've got our thread locker on there. Remember, a little thread locker in the wrong hands is a bad thing. Okay, again, these don't have to be overly tight. Just tight enough to stay there for as long as we want them to stay there. Okay, we've got that set up. Next thing is to adjust our mirror location here so that we do get a good look back, and then cinch this down so we'll hold it in place. Stand by. Okay, next step, as I said, is to tighten this down to hold the mirror in place so that the only adjustment is out here. As we said, thread locker in the wrong hands can be a bad thing. This we're not going to thread lock down because this we may in fact move around from time to time, but these bolts here we don't want them to move, so that's why we put the thread locker there. So we're going to drop this down and just going to hand tighten this at first, give it a little bit of a quarter turn there, and it's in place. Okay, so next step is to adjust the mirrors to our rear vision. Ideally, you'd like to have a volunteer here, somebody that you could have stand behind the machine. I'm at Wistful Vistas by myself today, so I don't have a volunteer. So I'm going to open up the garage door and do a, I'll call it a pre-fine adjustment, and then go ahead and completely cinch this down. I'll spare you that whole montage, so I'm going to do that and be right back to you. So as mentioned, wish I had a volunteer at this stage because you'd have them stand behind you on the machine. I'm sitting on the machine right now. You'd have them stand behind you on the machine and adjust the mirrors, and then of course you'd go out on the open road and do your fine adjustment. But what's immediately apparent to me after having installed both sides is that I'm not looking so much at my shoulders. My shoulders were probably about 50%, 60% of what I was seeing in the mirror, and now I'm down to maybe 10 or 20%. I think you need your shoulders to give you a sense of placement. The rest of setting up the mirror is, of course, to your taste. Road racers don't even have mirrors, but they're pretty necessary for the street. And I think I like them a little wider than a lot of people, because it's not necessarily the car directly behind me I worry about as it is to the one that might be on my quarter rear before a lane change or anything like that. I do try to do a head check before I make that move, but it would be nice just to be able to look over without moving your head too far and know that that car is there. So I'm going to do the fine adjustment once I get out onto the street driving around. The other thing to note is, as you set these are on a ball mount. You should always try to adjust them doing this, holding on to that, doing that. It's not necessarily a good idea to put the whole torque or leverage on that arm without support there. So it's good to do that if you can as you're setting them up. The last thing to mention is that when you're dialing them in and setting them on here, probably a good idea to make sure the mirror is centered on that swivel ball mount so that you've got plenty of movement. You won't be at the limit of one movement or the other as you get it set into place. So center it, set it up, install it, and that gives you the full movement that you can get out of that mirror to put it in place. All right, last step is to put this rubber boot back in place. We're going to do that. It's a little awkward to do it on the machine. That's the next step. Okay, been there, done that. Bought the t-shirt. What we do is open up the skirts of this just a little bit. Again, if it gets really reluctant to go down there, a little soap and water won't hurt anything at all, but not necessary in our case. It's very compliant rubber, and it goes down and it hides that little discolor or little chrome colored or cad plated, whatever they are. They're chrome-ish looking from view, so you get nice finished look on the mirror and the install. All right, next step, there's a little cap we're going to put on there. Stand by. Okay, probably the most important piece to put on the machine, this little black cap. Well, I'm joking about that, but it is going to make it finished looking. We're going to put that right in there. It fits right in, right into the alien socket, and center that down. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The voyage is complete. We didn't break anything. It's been really fun. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. SW Motech installation, rear mirror extensions on a BMW S1000R. I purchased mine from Revzilla, www.revzilla.com, and they are, I believe, pretty much bike specific. In this particular case, I think this set will fit both the single R and double R models, but put your bike into their bike category and they'll tell you which set to order.